With this awesome copy of The Time Machine on set for our 8th Doctor episode, and it being Academic August, we figured it was time to talk about a genre-building classic.
Get ready to get futuristic in this week's episode of Geek Crash Course. Dude, you didn't do it.
It's a really good book.
So go back in time and fix it!
I'd probably just spend time reading it more. One of the classic H.G. Wells tales, The Time Machine was first published in 1895 and was the story that coined the term time machine.
Many stories before it, like Rip Van Winkle, featured protagonists traveling forward in time by mystical means, but The Time Machine introduced the concept of controlling time travel via a machine or device.
A fictionalized version of a young H.G. Wells appears in the 6th Doctor serial Time Lash and actually travels in the Doctor's TARDIS. The implication is that the adventure inspires the Time Machine, a copy of which is the last book the 7th Doctor reads before his regeneration into the 8th Doctor in 1999 San Francisco. The Time Machine focuses on a nameless time traveler, an English inventor who builds a working time machine, showing off a small-scale version of the device to a group of his friends at a dinner party. At the next week's dinner party, the traveler reveals he has built a scaled-up version and that he has successfully traveled through time in it.
He reveals that he traveled to the year 802,701 AD and found the diminutive descendants of mankind called the Eloi. The traveler finds that Eloi society is peaceful and vaguely communist, but in a good way.
When the traveler returns to where he left his machine, he finds it has been stolen and dragged into a massive sphinx-like statue. Later that night, he and the Eloi are attacked by Morlocks, the huge ape-like men who live underground in the dark. The traveler surmises that humanity has branched into the two separate species.
The next day, the traveler saves the drowning Eloi Weena, though he is left confused as to why none of the other Eloi came to her aid. Together, the traveler and Weena venture to a museum, grab some matches, build some makeshift weapons, and head underground to retrieve the time machine.
When the traveler and Weena stop to rest for the night, they are attacked by Morlocks. A forest fire is started in the ensuing struggle, and Weena and the attacking Morlocks are killed. The traveler narrowly escapes, finding his machine, which the Morlocks were using as bait. The traveler escapes into the future, witnessing the death of the Earth, including blood-red beaches and horrifying crab monsters.
He then travels back to the beginning of the dinner party where his guests are left in disbelief. To prove his story, the traveler produces 2 bizarre flowers from the future, which had been given to him by Weena. He then promises to return in a half hour, but is nowhere to be seen 3 years later. His fate and place in time are left a mystery. The idea that H.G. Wells himself was the Traveler is a recurring trope in adaptations and derivative works. The 1960 film called The Traveler George and included a plaque on the machine that listed Wells's name. Other appearances of time-traveling Wells include Superman soap opera Lois and Clark, which featured old and young versions of Wells, and Warehouse 13, whose respective Wells was actually a woman who let her brother take the credit for her stories. There have been many adaptations of The Time Machine, but our favorites include
the George Powell-directed 1960 film version. The design of the machine is classic, and this adaptation stays close to the original novel. It also has this cool Star Trek 60s vibe and a charm to it. It's really cool to see in action.
The 1979 film, Time After Time, is another favorite of ours. It's a really loose, vaguely corny movie that features Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells, who travels to the 1970s to stop Jack the Ripper, played by David Warner, who stole Wells's time machine to continue his crimes in the future. Bonus points to this movie for casting future Back to the Future 3 cast member Mary Steenburgen as 70s city girl Amy.
If you want a more modernized version of the story, H.G. Wells' great-grandson, Simon Wells, directed a 2002 film version starring Guy Pearce as the Traveler in a film that has a bit more action and intrigue. It makes a few questionable choices with the original story and is nowhere near perfect, but the appearance of Jeremy Irons as the sinister, super-brained Uber-Morlock is all kinds of fun.
What's your favorite time machine in modern fiction? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe for more Geek Crash Course.
In the Star Trek universe, there are several stories featuring the Starfleet of the 29th century, who use Wells-class timeships to correct errors in history. The best of these is the Voyager episode Relativity, in which crew member 7 of 9 is recruited from the 24th century to stop deadly paradoxes created by a 29th century villain.
That's it for this week's episode on The Time Machine.
Until next week, or last week,
or 3 weeks from now.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and our website, geekcrashcourse.com.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you eventually
on Geek Crash Course. crab. Crab claw.
Crabs.
Crab.
Crabs.
Crab, 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 crab.
Crab. Morlock. 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 Morlock.